Hi, I'm Maddie Kropp, Director of Annual Giving at Wyoming Seminary.
Hello, I'm Liz Clemens-Cadle, Director of Alumni Programs at Wyoming Seminary, and welcome to a new episode of
Sem Connects
Virtually.
This week, we'll be chatting with our school counselors on how to reduce anxiety, stress, and remain calm in this new normal.
We hope you enjoy.
Thank you all for joining us today. I think we can all use a little bit of insight right now on how to chill out a bit.
Absolutely. So let's introduce our three panelists. With us today, we have Jess Montrella, Colleen Lewis, and Roya Fahmy. Thank you so much again for joining us. You guys are somewhat new faces at Wyoming Seminary, so could we start by having you just tell us a little bit about your roles at the school? We could just start with Jess.
Sure. I started at Wyoming Seminary about 4 years ago, working at the upper school as the counselor, and I just transitioned this past school year to the lower school as the counselor.
Great. And then I'm Colleen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I stepped into Jess's role at the upper school, so I'm the director of personal counseling up there at the beginning of the year after 10 years of experience in different private schools and mental health settings.
Great.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roya Fahmy. Thank you for inviting me here today. My role at SEM is the director of the Project for Enhanced Global Understanding. I work with peace building and I work with the international students, and our project is the first one that has been established in the 175 years of Wyoming Seminary's history.
So this is an extremely challenging time for everybody right now, and it's difficult for even adults to cope with a new way of living. We can only imagine how it must feel for adolescents. Colleen, can you speak about what you're seeing from the upper school students and how they are being affected?
Sure, and I'm going to start out by saying it's changing over time. I think initially when school was called for the delayed start, there was some concern, and then that there was some concern that maybe we wouldn't be getting back together. And then as it evolved, the day that it was announced that we wouldn't be returning, it was like, everyone sort of had a sense that it was coming, but the kids were really, I think, kind of gut punched, especially the seniors. And I have started a podcast, so I have been checking in with the different classes, which has been really nice because I am getting a sense of what's going on. And now it's kind of like there was some initial excitement and things were, kids were kind of enjoying adapting to the newness of it. But there is some of that, I think the spring is in the air kind of vibe going on, and it's getting harder, I think, for kids to stay engaged. But there's a lot of grief, honestly, especially among the seniors, and there's a lot of irritability, which you might be seeing at home, parents. But there's also an interesting thing that's really been a huge theme of all the podcasts I've done so far is this. There's actually been a lot of silver lining talk as well, and there's been a lot of hopefulness. For example, kids. There's even been a bit of relief, but a lot of kids have had a good amount of perspective taking, and they actually have some space now to do some reflection that they haven't been able to do. So that's been a really interesting and nice thing to see that they're getting out of it.
So a follow-up question to that, what are some strategies parents can implement if they see their teenagers going through those grieving stages or that sort of gut punch?
Right. Yeah.
Like, how can parents help if they see that happening?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think the first thing is to let them go through it and help them identify their feelings. One of the things that's really hard for adolescents is even naming emotions, because as they develop through adolescent years, they're actually capable of different depths of emotions and new emotions kind of as their brains evolve and grow. So a lot of times they're feeling all this stuff and they feel chaotic, but they don't know how to express it. So even just parents helping their kids identify the emotions and naming them is really helpful. Another one is to I kind of talk about parents needing to learn how to surf, because adolescent emotions, they are different than any other age group, and they do mirror toddlers more than anything else. And that's not to deprecate teens. God knows I love them. That's why I've been working with them my whole career. But what I mean by parents needing to learn how to surf is that usually when there's like a big, strong emotion with kids, with adolescents, they come in like a wave and they crest and then they crash and recede. So my advice for parents is to just kind of learn how to ride that without being too reactive in the heat of the moment. Help them kind of to name that emotion, or say, hey, I see you're frustrated. And if they spaz out at you for that, just keep your mouth shut and wait. Just ride it out, because I think we've all been there, right? And we've all seen kids have these sort of responses. So that's the second thing, is just really kind of learning how to surf, listen without judgment, help them name their emotions, and help them make room for uncomfortable emotions. So with that, I mean, there's been, and I've read it, and it actually came out very explicitly in one of the podcasts I ran, is that the kids are really having a tough time with adults saying, like, oh, well, it'll be better, it'll be okay, and look on the bright side. And that foisting of the positivity is like really worn off on kiddos, I think. And it's, they're finding it on their own. They are finding these interesting silver linings themselves, and I think they really just need their parents to just be with them and acknowledge the pain, and try not to compare it to their own either.
Right. Thank you. Jess, so you're obviously the counselor at the lower school. Can you speak to what you're seeing from the younger set of kids? How are they handling this really unique situation?
Sure. Obviously, it's harder to really know how all the kids are doing when you're not in the physical school building and you don't get to see the kids in action. But from the conversations that I've been able to have with kids and their families and teachers and administrators, it seems like the students are coping and adapting pretty well. I say that, that looks different for everyone, and there's no timeline to that. It's a continual process. But I believe, having come from the point where students were told you're not going back to school, there's a pandemic, and you're going to be starting virtual school, and you're not going to see your friends, they were feeling pretty overwhelmed and pretty stressed, just like the rest of us had been. Adults are too. Coming from that point to being able to build new skills to adapt and cope with their feelings at the same time, to tackling the virtual school setting, to learning how to function with their friendships in that setting. I've been pretty impressed to see how the kids have been able to do that. And I think it's because they are resilient. They were able to bounce back. They were able to master the challenge that they needed to. And from my perspective as a counselor, I really hope that they are able to reflect at some point, and maybe their parents can help them with that, to say, you are resilient. Therefore, in the future, when you face challenges, you get to look back at this situation and say, I am resilient. And when I see a challenge again, I know I can do it because I've already done it then. And to me, that's really a huge piece of learning that is so valuable that has come from this experience. And I look forward to seeing kids feel confident about that in the future.
Absolutely. So I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and I think the most difficult part of this is trying to explain to them the pandemic in a way that we don't terrify them, but that they're also really cognizant of what's going on and they're being safe. So what's your advice to parents of very young children? how do we talk to our kids about what's going on in the right way?
Sure. I have a 4-year-old also, so I understand. And even though I'm a counselor, it's still difficult. I think the first point is that we need to carve out time to sit and talk with them. I think sometimes our inclination as parents is to sort of shield them from what we perceive as being something as adults as being concerning and scary. And we think, well, they're pretty young, you know, like, let's just not mention it. But in actuality, kids, even young kids, are very intuitive and they understand clearly that there's something going on. So if we don't sit down with them and talk to them, they'll start to fill in the blanks with potentially misinformation or their fears, and that will drive more anxiety. So the first key thing is really to make that time to do that and to know that even young kids need to sit down with us. We need to give them developmentally appropriate facts, which is challenging too, to know sort of how much to give for which children. You know, I have different aged kids in my home. But I think for the younger kids, literally to say, there's a sickness going around. It's a lot like the cold and the flu that, you know, we've experienced in the past. And the majority of people who have it are faring very well with it. But it is easily passed from person to person. And in our family and in our community, we're working very hard to make sure that we don't contract it and pass it to other people, and maybe explain that's sort of the reason behind the social distancing and what we're doing is really a way to help other people versus out of fear. I think that's the first step. The second step is sort of reassuring them. Kids always need to be reassured of their safety. So just telling them, you know, as your parents, these are the steps we're taking to make sure that you're safe. There's community members out there, there's doctors and nurses and scientists who are also working to make sure that you're healthy and well and safe during this time period. And then finally, I think helping the kids brainstorm strategies that they have control over, that they can actually do to feel like they are doing something to help in the situation. All people need to feel like they're helping at a time that's difficult. So it definitely decreases anxiety if you feel like you have some way to do that. So for kids, of course, we know teaching them to wash their hands and teaching them to sneeze and cough and cover the sneeze and the cough are important things. But I also think it's important to talk to them about what they can do in terms of supporting people in their community. I think it's a nice way to help kids think outside of themselves. And, you know, whether it's just making a sign to thank frontline people, you know, the UPS man who's dropping something off on the porch, or even waving to the neighbor, you know, socially distancing safely, you know, waving to the neighbor to say, hey, some people might feel really isolated. Let's go out of our way to make sure that we're connecting with people, even though, you know, we have to do that from a distance. So I think those are all things that you can do to kind of explain this and talk to your kids about it.
I love that. Thank you.
I feel like those could be even helpful for adults.
Sure.
Yep.
Agree.
Start waving to my neighbor more.
If I may, I'd like to expand on something Jessica said. This, as we know, this pandemic is incredibly unjust, incredibly tragic, and a time where all of us in the world are certainly feeling different emotions. I would recommend that there's family time every day in everyone's family where parents can model two things. Parents can model to their children what we call authenticity. I think it's absolutely appropriate to tell a child that, you know, this is what a pandemic is and these are the things we can do. But we also have to model authenticity to them. You know, sometimes we get sad during a time like this. Sometimes we get scared, and it's okay to be that way. And I think having family time every day, whether it's around the dinner table or, you know, in the morning, is really important to do that. And the other things that parents can do is model what we call emotional management. And Colleen was giving an excellent example of teens and how they're learning emotional management, but they have to experience those highs and lows first. So don't forget that the kids are watching us as parents. They're watching how, for the first time in history, all of us in the world in 2020 are going through this together. So this is an excellent opportunity for older kids, for young adults to learn emotional management, authenticity, and some real planning during a crisis. These will be excellent life lessons for them further on down the road.
Absolutely. Well, I find it interesting that you said family time and family dinner. I would say before this pandemic, my husband and I got home from work. We fed the kids first. We ate later, which wasn't always the best. But now we sit down together, and it's been a real silver lining during this time that we have that time together at the end of the day, and we sit and we eat together. And I've really come to enjoy that, and we can do that after, you know, when we get back to normalcy.
Yeah.
So Roya, you are known to start or end a meeting with a few minutes of mindfulness exercise. If someone wanted to begin practicing mindfulness, how would you suggest they go about that? And what are some other ways that people could reduce stress? I know that for me, I need a routine to reduce my anxiety and to feel more, I don't want to say control because that's not what I need to sort of do all the time, but I do need that routine to alleviate my anxiety and a plan. So what are some ways that people can reduce some stress and practice mindfulness at home in this new sort of way we're living?
Yes, thank you. Excellent question. The first thing I'm going to say to everyone is breathe. Breathe. We are all in our phones and our iPads, and the television is very loud, and we are getting masses of information on the coronavirus and what's happening in the world. Can we turn all of those off, and can we just breathe? And let's do that now. You can take 4 breaths through your nose, and the count to 4 breaths out through your mouth. I do this with my clients. I do this before every meeting because I know people at Sem are incredibly busy and running from one meeting to one class, to another. And it's very important, if we want to be able to listen and ground and calm, that we just breathe. That would be one tool that I would offer. The second is, one of the silver linings, as we're saying, about this pandemic is that people are now on the web and on YouTube giving mini seminars on mindfulness. So you may be able to get a mini meditation, or maybe a 10-minute yoga class, or something that calms you. And there are many, many people that are doing that right now. One person I would highly recommend, who is a psychotherapist, a researcher, and a mindfulness expert. Her name is Tara Brach. She spells it Brach, PhD. If you join her Facebook page or her Twitter or Instagram, you will have access to a free every Wednesday night meditation and contemplation. So I would highly recommend someone like her, or someone that you recognize or can be with. Now, that being said, many people say to me, I can't sit still. I can't sit still with my eyes closed. I can't do that. I say to them, wonderful. Go out and take a walk in nature. Nature is your friend at this time. Go out and take a walk. Walking can be a meditation within itself. So that's the second tool I would use. The third tool I would use for grounding and calmness is connection. I think connection at this point is extremely important. And it's back to what I said about the family. I think all over the world right now, people are feeling very lonely and very scared. And there are 3 kinds of loneliness that can cause a lot of stress and anxiety. One is the loneliness for an intimate partner, a spouse, a significant other. The other is loneliness for family and friends. And as both Jess and Colleen have said, the kids are missing their friends a lot. And the third is loneliness for ourselves, for our authentic self. So with spending time in breathing, in meditation, in walking, we are spending time. We can spend time with ourselves, we can spend time with family and friends, and we can spend time with and intimate partner. Quality time. And again, these things can be done in 15 to 20-minute chunks of time. And that is mindfulness as well. Hello, everything is turned off in the house right now. I'm looking at you in the eye, and I'm really listening to what you have to say. Mm-hmm.
I think
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think those are all easy to implement.
Yes, absolutely.
They are.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
are.
and if I could just highlight the importance of going back to parents, of parents being able to do self-care, because that's really the first strategy. And I've been sending out a lot of resources for parents in Tom's weekly emails about this. But staying calm as possible themselves is really important, because and both Jess and Roya touched on this. Kids do get a sense of safety and security from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just in what they say. The kids see it in the subtleties. They see the body language. They hear the tone of voice, and they pick up a lot from that. And Jess and Roya both touched on that. But so if there is honestly one thing, and I know it may sound cliche or whatever, but really learning how to take care of yourselves at this time. And if you don't, if it means saying no to your kids, like in playing tag or something, because you need 10 minutes for yourself, that's okay. Still have that family time and make time for that. But if there's a 10-minute break that you need, take the break, get yourself reset, do some, breathing with counting in and out, count to four, in, count to four, hold it, count to four, out, count to four. Just do it. Just do it. Take that time for yourself, and because it'll help your whole household calm down if you, as the leaders of the family, are calmer.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Breathe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything anyone else would like to add before we wrap this up?
Can I just add one thing? Colleen had talked about naming feelings and identifying feelings and naming them as a strategy, for kids. And actually that is what I would suggest for the younger kids as well. And I've done some work this year in the lower school with the social emotional curriculum, helping kids do exactly that. And because of the pandemic, I was cut short in doing some of those sessions with the kids. And I just wanted to let parents know that Second Step is the name of the curriculum that I was using. And the company has put out those lessons for emotion identification and management to be used during the time of the pandemic for families. So if you feel like you want to do some of that work with your kids, I know it's K through 5. So if you go to secondstep.org and right at the top of the website, you can click to get those lessons and find your child's age range. And there's 5 or 6 lessons that are really great that could be useful right now. And another set of skills to be gained from this experience.
Fantastic.
That's great.
I'd like to speak from an international perspective, if I may. We are all proud of Wyoming Seminary being an international boarding school as well as a domestic school. I would like to just offer that our international students may be going through a different kind of trauma and a different kind of shock than we are here. In a way, the whole world has had to adjust to a different culture. Not just we're all on Zoom meetings and web culture, but the culture of staying inside and being very careful and not taking things for granted that we took before. My heart goes out to the international students who are in different time zones than we are. They're taking classes, some of them at midnight, others at 7 p.m. at night. So just if parents to be aware of that, the international parents and anyone who has the international students staying with them, to remember that they are going through almost a different quality of chaos, or almost a different quality of adjustment to this. And then the second thing I'd like to say is that not everyone experiences this as a trauma. There are many people who are saying, well, this is definitely a trauma for everyone right now. It really depends on your perspective. My project works with kids from Israel and Palestine. And my Israeli and my Palestinian kids say to me, they live day to day with the feeling that at any point anything can happen. So it may be that this is not affecting them as a trauma as much as it's affecting other people whose lives were very different. So just an international perspective to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those students deal with things that we haven't dealt with ever.
No.
Right.
So to them, if this is the worst it will get for them right now, that I'm sure they would take that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. This has helped me unclench my jaw for the hour, and I'm sure my dentist will be happy about that. But I think that this is helpful for parents, especially who might have more than one child at home and is juggling the challenge of making sure that they're all being heard and they're all feeling that they're getting the help that they need. So this has been really lovely.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
No problem.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm really happy we got to talk to them and get some insight on how to relax a little bit in this time.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of breathing, probably start practicing that tonight, use it throughout my day. I just think it's great too that they were able to speak to how to speak to kids of all ages.
Yes.
Because I'm sure that's difficult right now.
Yeah, and the fact that this is a resource that our community has for the younger children, for the upper school, and then Roya to give the international perspective, I think that really shows the depth of our community and just really encompasses that Wyoming Seminary as a whole is educating a person, but also wants to help with the mental health aspect of a person. They're not just a one-dimensional sort of thing. It's a student as a whole being. So I think that really helps define us and what our mission is.
Absolutely. The Wyoming Seminary community is incredibly lucky to have 3 wonderful women helping us, like you said, with our mental health and focusing on us and the students, especially as a whole person. And I hope everyone enjoyed that episode as much as we did.
Stay home and stay safe.